There's no doubt that you have, seen the major party leaders come up here to talk about Arctic sovereignty and security. And is that something you think about? Like, how real are those threats for you?
I feel like what that's creating for us residents is it's creating this kind of fear campaign they're doing.
Like you weren't thinking about it before, but now you are, kind of thing?
Exactly.
Were you thinking about it, Nancy?
Since Trump came in and since he's so focused on mineral wealth in the North, I think we are under threat. I think that's very real. And I think we've been very complacent for the past many, many years because we had a strong southern neighbor that we could count on, and that's gone.
So, Lindsay, you spent 16 years in the military, so you've been at the pointy end of this conversation.
I think people definitely have a legitimate concern. I mean, when you look at the numbers, the Americans have roughly 22,000 military stationed in the Arctic and Alaska, and Canada, we are lucky if we have maybe 300. We have to stop taking the protection of our Arctic for granted and thinking that the Americans will always be there for us. I definitely think that's a legitimate concern, yeah.
But the Americans themselves being a concern?
No.
No, not really, right? Still, the Russians are still the bad guys.
Yeah, Russia or China, yeah.
Or China, yeah, definitely. You
Yeah.
know? I don't really have any fear of the Americans coming up and
neither
invading.
do I. No.
The Northwest Passage is opening more and more every year. So you don't know who's coming through that thing.
You have been to almost all the political rallies that you can get your hands on. Right?
Oh, yeah. I always like to hear what the leaders have to say from themselves, yeah.
Are you hearing anything from any of the major party leaders on this subject, on the matter of threats and security that gives you some comfort?
Defense independence from the Americans is important, and they've all kind of mentioned that. But again, what the leaders say, maybe half of it actually gets done. They make a lot of promises they can't keep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think too, spending more money on our defense is not only important for Canadian sovereignty, but I think it's also important for making Canada look like a strong nation again. In 2014, we promised our NATO allies that we would spend at least 2% of our GDP on defense, and to date, we haven't done that. I think we need a government that takes action on that, yeah.
But something else I just want to throw in here for discussion, that we are also seeing a changing role of our military. I don't know if you agree with that, Lindsay, but during our evacuations and our fires, that we've had 2 major ones in the last 10 years, I don't know what we would have done without our military. They were our firefighters, they helped us to get out of here, they took care of our land when we were away. So our military, they're crucial up here because we are so impacted by climate change, 4 times the global average. So, yeah, we need a strong military.
Is the military's job to be firefighters, though?
No, of course not. But we have no one else.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have anyone else. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That should be a last resort, not a Band-Aid.
We've mentioned wildfires and evacuations. I grew up in Norman Wells. This is a community impacted by climate change. Apart from wildfires. This is a community that relies on ice roads. Our ice road times, it's shrinking because of how warmer it's getting. To me, it threatens the existence of my hometowns. The threat of wildfires to me is existential not only to lives, but to culture. I don't like thinking about what's going to happen if we leave climate change unchecked.
I hear you.
Yeah, so do you think that we have 2 existential threats? I mean, I think we do. I think we have Trump as one, and I think climate change as the other. And sadly, I think Trump is driving our overlooking climate change.
Absolutely.
And it has gone from a top issue to almost non-existent. And I think you'd agree too, being a Dene up here, that we have worked so hard to try and take care of our environment. And here we are talking pipelines.
Yes.
So
I think the environment's important, but I think even when you look at recent polls that were put out, climate change is like 6th or 7th on the list. I mean, when people can't afford to keep food in their stomach and put a roof over their head, the effects of the economy are really hurting the average hardworking Canadian. I think that the tariffs can provide an opportunity for Canada in that, you look at what they've caused us to do as a nation. They've caused us to look more inward to see how we can become more sovereign. And I think that can really strengthen Canada if we bring home more manufacturing and we just, I guess that's why I like what I hear Pierre Poilievre saying. He sees that Canada needs to be more self-reliant and sovereign, and it took tariffs to get us talking about that.
I don't know if we have the people to produce, though. Like, I think we need more people to help with that production if we're going to be self-reliant, for production.
You're talking immigration?
Yeah, immigration, yeah. Bring in more immigrants. Absolutely. There's labor shortage everywhere. Everywhere you look, people are looking for workers, We're going to produce and be self-reliant in this. We got to have the population to support it, and we're not there,
I think that's true that we need more people here. We definitely do to make up for our labor shortages. But unfortunately,
Canada's a big place. You can spread out, right?
I'm talking about the north, and I think the problem that we're having with that, though, is there's nowhere for people to live.
You're going to talk about housing, right? Yeah, exactly.
Because it's all connected.
That's right. You need the people to build the houses to have the people that build it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I think part of our problem, though, is we need to get back to where the immigration is not outpacing the housing, the jobs. I mean, it's even not fair to the immigrants that are coming here, because they come here and what are they faced with? Homelessness, joblessness, healthcare issues. I think, yes, Canada is a very welcoming country. Please come here. But I think as a country, we have a right to determine how many, what is the right level, and there has to be a cap.
So it's this combination of a housing crisis on top of a cost of living crisis that, when you look at immigration, it's hard to defend because to me, we are relying on immigrants to do our work. We're relying on immigrants to build for us. But, what about Canadians? What about us at home? We are not offering quality incentives for Canadians to go out and build homes, for Canadians to go out and work in service industries, We are not offering Canadians enough opportunity or even the chance to earn a living through these classic industries that we worked in. Here I have one job. I worked really hard to get this job at Dene Nation. I graduated post-secondary, and my monthly rent is probably 70% of my monthly income. I'm barely making enough myself after going through university, after getting a pretty good job. To me, that very fact, cost of living, housing, to me, I just don't find Canada has capabilities to be accepting in more and more immigrants.
What if they help build the houses, though?
Totally.
Like drywallers and painters, you don't really even need a ticket for that. Like plumber, electrician, the Red Seal trades, they can even write an equivalency exam for that. What if we just vet a little bit more and brought in the people that can do some, skilled labor?
I guess what I'm just trying to ask is, why aren't we funding Canadians, people born and raised in our country to do that?
Because they would be doing it already,
Yeah.
right?
I agree. Yeah.
Like the trades haven't changed. Trades just keep making more and more money. At least we got some young people now getting back into it because they finally started pushing it again. But, when I was going through high school, the trades were like, stay away from that, go to university.
Yeah.
Luckily I was, one teacher took me aside. He said, Mike, you're not going to university. Go do this. Go be a plumber. Okay. So.
And it served you well, right?
Oh, you're damn right you did. Yeah.
Coming up, why securing the Arctic is about much more than the military.
It's the people in the communities that are going to be standing up for our sovereignty. We have asked them to be our eyes and our ears, and they have nothing. They don't even have internet half the time.
We were in Nuvik, and I went to the store and bought a couple apples. I think for like 4 little apples. Tell me what you think about this price, $7.22 for 4 little apples.
I grew up in Nuvik for a portion of my life. Mm-hmm. It's really insulting. I want my people to have fresh fruit. I want my people to have fresh produce and products instead of relying on, last minute shipments, the fruits that's been hiding in the back of the truck to be delivered.
That is one thing living in the north. You don't always get fresh produce. It's kind of hit and miss. But here in Yellowknife, for electricity, we have some of the most expensive electricity in Canada, maybe even in North America. I mean, here in Yellowknife, we're at about 41 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
So when you get an electricity bill every month for $500 or $600, that takes a big chunk out of your budget. And you have to look at ways to decrease that, maybe throw some more blankets on your bed or something, and yeah, you can definitely feel it.
And yet we lost power this morning.
Exactly.
We always lose power.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that we need to look at with this is that the population of the Northwest Territories is 46,000. That's all we have up here. And half the population lives in Yellowknife. And the other half is distributed, in small communities all around the territories. And the life you have in Yellowknife is completely different from what you have out there, where I can tell you there's almost third world conditions in some of the communities. So I think we need to take that into account when we're looking at the northern picture, because it's the people in the communities that are going to be standing up for our sovereignty. We have asked them to be our eyes and our ears. We've asked them if they see something, let us know. If there's a fire blowing into town, let us know. And when we talk about the military, we've asked the people in the communities to keep us in the know about what's going on out there. And they have nothing. They don't even have internet half the time.
We have 40% of Canada's landmass, but only about 1% of the population.
Exactly. Yeah. To keep us sovereign.
That's what the Rangers are for, the Canadian Rangers.
Yes, true,
yeah.
and they're out there working with the Rangers, and it's wonderful. I love those guys.
Yeah,
So-
our Rangers are severely underfunded though.
Old ass rifles driving on Bravos. Yeah, I know. I've seen it.
It looks cool, but I can't imagine it's that efficient.
Are you hearing anything that represents the whole package to you to say, I believe in this, this is where I'm going to vote? You don't have to tell me who you're voting for, but are you confident that you've heard what you need to hear?
To me, Mark Carney and the Liberal Party they're offering a bit more for Canadians. When I look at people, say the NDP or the Conservatives, they have a lot of fancy words, a lot of pretty words that I like to hear. We're going to build the homes, we're going to stop the crime. But my second question when I hear that is, how are we going to do it? They're not answering that second part.
I feel like you're jumping out of your skin, Lindsay.
I have a bit of a different point of view. I think every time I listen to Mark Carney, all I hear is distraction. Either he's talking about what a threat Trump is, or how terrible Poilievre is because he didn't get a security clearance. I mean, are we going to do this for a fourth time with the same government? I want something different, and I want a change. And if Canada fails, at least we failed trying a change and not the same thing for the fourth time around. For this veteran, the Liberals are asking for more than I can give right now.
I do hope that Mark Carney is successful in his bid, because I do feel that he can pull the economic levers that he needs to pull to get along with Trump, and that is my big concern on that level.
I'm going to guess you're not sure.
You look at the leaders. Jagmeet Singh, I really like him as a person. I really do. I like the Conservatives' party platform. I like what they're saying they're going to do. And as for my representative in Parliament, I like the Liberal. So usually if you get 2 out of 3 of those, you'll probably get my vote. Right now, all 3, they're all going different ways, So I'm really all over the place in this.
Okay, that's fair. Can you look ahead and help explain to the rest of Canada what you think the North should look like, or what you want the North to look like in 20 years?
I'd like to see it become a larger logistics hub. I think, as you had mentioned earlier, with the increase in the usage of the Northwest Passage, there's going to be a need for that. Yeah.
What about you, Damien?
It's just stronger, thriving Indigenous cultures.
Yeah.
I want to see, the Dene across the Decho thriving. I want to see them with their roads, schools, police stations, hospitals that are under their control. My perfect future is ensuring that Indigenous governments aren't just consulted, but they're the ones saying, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't do that.
One of the things that we're not talking about that I wonder if we do, because of the differences between Yellowknife and the communities, I wonder if we need 2 MPs up here. Like, we need someone to represent our communities and to be out there pounding on the desktops and saying, we need this. We need them to have housing where they don't have 2 and 3 generations living in one little house and sleeping on the floor, you know, and another MP to represent Yellowknife, because we have 2 completely different cultures.
Your sense of the future?
I'd like to see self-reliance. You know, I'd like to see a lot more independence. I think, you know, infrastructure is important. And I think propping up the communities. Like, you were just in Nunavut. They don't even have a dental office.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we should start somewhere small and just get a dentist up there instead of flying people down south at $1,200 for 3 days or whatever. Do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, these are all good ideas. It's a good chat. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Damien, Lindsay, Nancy, Mike, appreciate it.
Thanks for coming up.